Hi, you're watching WION'. I'm Sana Khan. Welcome to our very special broadcast on the situation in Aleppo and Mosul, that's in Syria and Iraq. We start with Aleppo, which was once a bustling economic hub and a cultural destination surrounded by ancient architecture and relics. But the metropolis has suffered greatly in Syria's 5-year war. The Syrian and Russian onslaught has been going on for months now. But now it is at a new intensity as it approaches what may be the end game. A strategy of indiscriminate bombing, terror and destruction. The UN was told threatens to turn this part of Syria's second city into a giant graveyard. The Syrian army leaflets dropped on the city warned the inhabitants that they must flee or face annihilation. The siege, in fact, could be a turning point in the battle for Syria. On the show tonight, we talk about what exactly is happening in Aleppo. Joining me is our correspondent, Daniele Pagani. He was, in fact, recently in Mosul for over a month's time. We'll talk to him in just a bit. Joining me from Moscow is Petr Topichkanov. He's a senior researcher and associate from Carnegie Moscow Center. Mandy Clark, our bureau chief, joins us from London. Sanjay Kapoor, editor of Hard News magazine. Thank you, all of you, for joining me this evening on this discussion. In fact, we start by, in fact, showing you what exactly is happening in Aleppo. Take a look at this report.
After 150 days of siege, the final phase in the battle for Aleppo, Syria's largest city, has begun. By all accounts, it could well be the deadliest. The fighting is concentrated in eastern Aleppo, home to several rebel groups, most of them hardcore Islamists. Elite Syrian special forces are reportedly in the city ahead of a broad Syrian army thrust to drive out the Islamists. While Russian bombing continues, the Syrian army has been heavily shelling areas where Islamist fighters are suspected to be hiding. Reports say that the death toll could be overwhelming. Stephen O'Brien, the United Nations humanitarian chief, has warned that the eastern side of Aleppo could become one giant graveyard. Beginning November, at least 800 civilians have died in bombing by Russian aircraft and shelling. Tens of thousands of civilians are fleeing the city. According to the Red Cross, 50,000 people have fled eastern Aleppo since Saturday. But moving out has its shares of risks, with many killed in sniper fire or crossfire and, of course, artillery shelling. The Syrian White Helmets reported 45 civilians killed while fleeing their homes on Wednesday. Life is hardly better for those opting to remain at home. The city is short of every basic necessity, including food, water, electricity and medicines. Doctors are way too often carrying out surgeries in abandoned houses and underground storage areas, often without any basic equipment. With the Syrian government confirming that its special forces are in Aleppo, it's clear that the battle for the city will be fought street by street, house by house, with no quarter given and none expected. Bureau Report, WION'.
All right, let me start by talking to Daniele Pagani, who is the only reporter, in fact, from India. Very few reporters are out there from this region who are covering and seeing what actually is happening in Mosul first. But talking about the situation in Aleppo, Daniele, despite global criticism and a warning from the United Nations saying that it's soon to become a graveyard, what exactly is happening on the ground? You were initially supposed to be in Syria, but that, of course, wasn't possible. Explain to our viewers what's going on.
So, to keep it very simple, the situation in Aleppo is probably reaching its final stage. So we have a city which is divided in two main parts, the eastern part and the western part. The eastern part is under control of a group of rebels, mainly linked to Jabhat al-Nusra, which is not the most prominent organization within this group, but it's the most powerful and well-armed. So the government forces, backed by Russian airstrikes, are trying to enter this city in order to reconquer it and to secure it. It is a problematic situation because the eastern part of Aleppo is still home to many civilians who did not manage to flee. They did not manage to flee often because these groups, these rebel groups active within the city, do not allow them to flee. So it's going to be a very, very difficult battle involving a lot and maybe too many civilians.
All right, let me go across now to Petr Topichkanov. Sir, thanks for joining us here on WION. Give us a sense of what you think is, all these outside forces that are involved in the fight. America's policy especially seems to be muddled. They back the uprising against Assad for a long time now, but there seems to be no plan B. What do you make of what's happening as far as America's policy is concerned?
It seems to me that now it's quite difficult time to predict what Donald Trump will do in the Syrian crisis. But what is clear from now that he may be ready for some kind of negotiations with Vladimir Putin about Syria and about some kind of synchronized efforts in Syria and Iraq. Of course, his generals and recently announced Secretary of Defense may have different view on the Russian role in the region. So it's very hard to predict what to expect from Donald Trump. But what is clear that now Obama administration and the Russian government decided to restart talks on Syria, so we will try to achieve some kind of consensus and understanding even before Trump became President of the United States.
Right, but Mandy, coming to you, we saw that deal, with the US and Russia coming together to broker some sort of peace, but that fell apart very, very soon. After 48 hours of ceasefire, there was no peace anymore, and things were back to...
...is that they have called Assad guilty of war crimes in 2013.